as I was mentioning earlier, this is more just kind of a tech tool talk. As I mentioned to Elise and Wally, it's not a tool that I've actually had an opportunity to use, although I'm planning to for my online Search for Life in the Universe class. So my goals for today are just to kind of introduce you all to FlipGrid. I do have a lot of colleagues around SUNY who use it, especially for in the COIL program, where the idea is to kind of quickly build a sense of community between a faculty member's class here in SUNY and a collaborating class overseas. And so this is a tool that is, you know, FlipGrid is all about making it very easy for, well, it doesn't have to be students, but people in a group, and we're talking about classes, to share short videos, you know, oftentimes minute and a half, 2 minutes, up to 10 minutes. And I'll show you where you can set that when you're setting up topics or assignments in your FlipGrid. But I thought what I would do first is actually play a shortish video from the FlipGrid folks to kind of let everybody know what the tool is all about. Maybe show a little bit of a clip from Stephen Winch at K-State, who's talking about using video, and the links are in the notes that Marie's put into the chat. So first of all, just this introduction to what FlipGrid is.
It is amazing to watch what kids will say to a computer screen that they won't say to a teacher. There's a level of honesty that comes out from kids. You see more of their natural side, or sometimes more of their personality comes out when they're making a video. It's very personal. A lot of kids who are timid to speak directly to a person will share all kinds of things on a FlipGrid. So to me, it's a tool that very easily lets kids have a voice and be heard with very little work on the side of the teacher other than asking the question and giving the space for that question to be answered.
One of the things that I think librarians have been in the vanguard about is using technology in authentic ways, not just for consuming, but for creating. The authenticity of video and voice really helps build community and relationships. And relationships are what it's all about. Learning happens best when there are relationships between the faculty member, the instructor, and the students, and among the students. It was Maslow that said, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We've got a more powerful toolkit than ever before, and we can use it to create and make a difference in our worlds. So I want my students to go out there and model that in the K-12 environment, and I want their students to be able to create and participate in powerful ways.
I was looking for an application where I could use technology inside the classroom as well as outside of the classroom for students to speak their math thinking and then hopefully have other students follow their same process. So most recently in my classroom, I took the math practices and focused on perseverance and understanding problems. Each group then was responsible to record a response that was moderated by myself, so they didn't have the opportunity to see any other student responses on FlipGrid until I unlocked those videos. And students now have gone back into the FlipGrid app and are watching videos and filling out a feedback form. The application and the use of technology has allowed for me to break down the four walls in my classroom instead of being able to critique just the students in that particular class in those 45 minutes. I'm having students critique across the 95 students on my team. It allows the students to see that sometimes those regular lower level students, in terms of what their ability appears to be, they're actually communicating their process much better than the kids who get the math very quickly.
When we first created FlipGrid, we focused primarily on the interaction between teachers and students to amplify student voice. What we found is that teachers use the environment to share their best practices and stories with other teachers around the world.
It's been a tool that really helps students get their voice to the forefront, and it has really been something that's been a catalyst for bringing dialogue back into the classroom.
We're in the selfie generation. These kids don't mind looking at a camera and practicing their English over and over and over again. They actually have fun. I've had students who are really shy in the classroom. They really liven up in front of the camera.
We love FlipGrid, and the reason why is because it allows our students to express themselves in their native language, American Sign Language, and communicate with each other instead of having to type everything in English, which is their second language.
Okay, so lots of inspirational music, but you get the idea. This is a very easy platform for students to post short video clips and to post them in response to prompts that you set up. And so you can tell from the FlipGrid video that this is an application that clearly has a lot of traction in the K through 12 arena. But there's no reason why we can't think about how we might use it for our classes as well. So I just wanted to maybe have a little bit of discussion here. Given that you have no experience with FlipGrid, you just have a germ of an idea what it might be able to do. What are the ways that you would be interested in using student-generated video for your classes this fall? Whether you're one of the few of us who are teaching face-to-face, or if you're doing a remote instruction class, or if, like me, you're doing a fully online course.
It's interesting. I have a daughter who just finished 3rd grade, and I was exposed to FlipGrid this past spring. That's how they did birthday parties. Everyone would make a video for the birthday person. And the teacher would, accumulate them all and then open them up for everyone to see.
Cool.
But I'm very curious how others would integrate it into an academic setting, as we have undergraduate academic interns at the Wellness Center.
I mentioned to Keith that I'm team teaching a class on Vermeer with an art historian. I'm a literature professor. And my initial thought, Keith, was that a student could aim their camera at a painting by Vermeer, a reproduction, and narrate their analysis. But it also occurs to me that obviously they could do that on the computer, which is to say they could have the image on the screen and talk and somehow capture the video on their computer and then upload that to FlipGrid. I don't know if that's possible, but it seems like
well,
they don't really need a camera, they just need audio, but at any rate.
Right, but that does bring up a point that, and we'll model both of these in the session today. You certainly can use FlipGrid through a web browser on my MacBook, for example, but I think the way it really becomes accessible to our students is through the FlipGrid app on their phones.
Through the phone, okay. But again, so my idea was that they would be looking at an image and then they would narrate their analysis of some component of it, again, in response to a prompt.
Yep. Leandro, I know you're just dying to come up with ideas here.
No, I never have about FlipGrid, but I was thinking, well, maybe instead of discussion forums, every now and then they can submit the responses through this. But then I thought, if every student sent a 5-minute clip, that would be too time consuming. So I'm thinking maybe about the learning goals for different activities, and this is good to get students talking.
Yep.
So for those who feel good writing the responses but don't talk too much, maybe thinking about a couple of activities where they do practice their vocal skills.
Right.
So maybe thinking something about that.
So I actually, when I saw that you registered, I was thinking of your oral history projects that you've been involved with in the past, and this could be a very nice platform to actually host those and make them in a more public kind of format. You know, for language teachers, it would be a great way for students to be able to actually model oral communication in the language and so forth. So I think there are lots of, oh yeah, Wally.
Yeah, for me in the spring, I teach dancers, I teach dance technique. So in the spring semester, students were texting me their videos because I need to see them individually. Yep. Yeah, so way too much data traffic on my phone. So if they can use a FlipGrid ad, I'm safe.
Yeah. Yeah, so you could set up a grid, and we'll talk about what grids and topics are, but you could set up a grid for your class, and then every time your students need to upload a video of some combination they're doing or some technique they're demonstrating, you could set that up as a separate topic on the grid, and then there's a very clearly defined place. Here's where this is going to be uploaded to, and then when you have, you know, the bandwidth, both mentally and electronically, you can go to your FlipGrid grids and look at that topic and pull up just the video after video and see what your students have been doing.
Will it be integrated to Moodle, or do the students and do we have to go elsewhere to see this grid?
I've looked at it. There is supposedly the ability to create an embed code that would allow us to embed the topics from a grid into our Moodle pages. I've not gotten that to work though. Looks like it's a fairly straightforward iframe code that should embed, but when I try to do it, I get just a blank space where the grid should be. So I'll continue to look at that. That clearly would make it nicer if the students could go to our Moodle spaces and open up a page that's got the FlipGrid grid right on it and click the button. But as hopefully we'll see in just a minute or two, it's pretty easy to direct students from your Moodle class to your FlipGrid. Actually, let me go ahead and do that right now.
One other thought I had too while you're doing that as a use, you know, in the beginning, I think I've heard it mentioned in some of your workshops, we're going to have to convene as a group when we haven't met in person first, right? On the spring. And in the beginning, a lot of time it could be hard to get participation as we're going around introducing, but maybe as a breakout, FlipGrid could be a nice way for students who might feel more comfortable to make their own little video and have that play than to speak up in front of a group. That might be a nice tool as well.
Yeah, certainly for my Life in the Universe class, which is going to be fully online, we're not going to have any synchronous scheduled sessions. I'm planning to use FlipGrid as our initial icebreaker. You know, let's all introduce ourselves to the class.
Well, can you say, are you going to say more about that? Because if not, could you? I was also thinking about that, and then I was trying to imagine what a prompt like that would be. I mean, is it introduce us to, you know, where you are right now? I mean, that could be sort of,
well, yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
When you go to set up your account and add your first grid, it will come with an automatic topic that says something like "Say hello" on FlipGrid, and it is a kind of a basic. Well, I'm actually going to direct you to the default topic in a minute, but you know, you probably would want to customize that for my Search for Life in the Universe class. You know, I would tell my students, you know, make a recording either in selfie view, or if you don't want your face on the camera, you know, flip to the rear facing camera and point at something that is meaningful to you, and tell me, well, what's your preferred name, pronouns, why are you interested in life in the universe, what are you hoping to get out of the course, those kinds of things. As we talked about Tuesday afternoon when we're talking about icebreakers, you can decide to what extent is the icebreaker just going to be focused on community building, or do you want to actually tie it back to the course? So the example I gave Tuesday afternoon was I was working with a faculty member who was designing an online course for the history of television. And his icebreaker was a way for students to introduce themselves, but what he had the students do was to select a favorite TV character from some TV program in the past and discuss why that character resonated with them and why that character represented them in some respect. So the students were still introducing themselves, but it had at least this kind of peripheral tie-in to the topic of the course. So or you don't have to. It could be and I'm going to have 60 some students this fall, so it's a question of how do we begin to know each other. And so I probably will set up 6 teams of 10 for my course and have those 10 those teams kind of persist for the semester. So I might actually focus the icebreaker on within the smaller groups, so that we do, not every student has to watch every 60 other students introduce themselves. So I put a link into the chat, which is my sandbox course, and let me go ahead and share my screen again. So if you go to my sandbox course, well, before I go there, I just want I won't play this, but this makes super simple videos for teaching online. I would encourage everyone to go and watch this. It's like a 12-minute YouTube video. Again, as I mentioned, it was Michael Lynch from Kansas State. He's had some really excellent YouTube videos about dealing with various teaching issues. And if you are at all uncomfortable about getting in front of the camera and thinking that, oh, I need to have perfect lighting, I've got to have this polished script, he destroys that. He says, just get on camera, be yourself. And that's what your students are going to want anyway. They want to see you. They don't want to necessarily see some polished performance. So anyway, if you go to the sandbox course, I'm going to have you look at this page for a minute, but something else I want to show off, because we just installed it overnight. We have a couple of new course design formats installed on our Moodle system, and one of them is collapsible weeks, which and many of you know that if you put a lot of stuff on the front page of Moodle, it can get very long and scroll of deathy. But with this collapsible topics format, you can have just kind of a thumbnail sketch of each of your course sections with a description of what's available in there. And all you and your students have to do is expand whatever section you want to look at, and then contract what you don't want to look at. So if you all go to the Say Hello on FlipGrid, I've got actually a couple of ways for you to get to this FlipGrid topic, where you can practice doing a little short introduction. I just put a link to the grid topic on the page here, and so if I click on it, you would go here. You would see whatever your students would see, whatever prompt that you wanted them to reply to. If this is the icebreaker, how you want them to introduce themselves. And then there is this big green record a response button that they could click on, and they would need to log in. I'm, in this case, going to log in with my Google account. And then,
oh, I gotta cut in here. I'm so sorry.
Yep.
Have you set up FlipGrid so that only your students can log in? I mean, how is this controlled in terms of per class and in terms of safety?
Let's put a pin in that for like 4 or 5 minutes. I will definitely come back to it. So just here's how you could record. I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen to actually show you on my phone the way students would probably do it. So I'm going to share my screen again, but now I'm going to actually share my iPhone rather than my laptop. So you should be seeing my iPhone now, right?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, and this is the FlipGrid app. You won't see that what I'm doing in the background is switching back over to my my Moodle sandbox space, and where I've got that QR code that I've embedded in the page in my Moodle course. But you do see that one of the options on my iPhone is to scan a FlipGrid QR code. So I'm going to select that option. And you can see that I'm looking at my laptop, right? And as soon as I roll over, it takes me straight to that topic on my FlipGrid account in the student's FlipGrid app on their phone. And they would be able to see, at this point, I've not locked this grid down at all, just to make it easy for the workshop, but we will talk about different ways of locking it down. So anyone can view the responses on the grid at this point. And again, if I were a student, I would click on the record, and you do have to log in. Students can log in with their Google account, but if they click login with Microsoft, that might be preferred, because you know, they would use their Purchase College email address. And Marie, this might be the problem you were having with Teams before. They're not asking for your Skype or Microsoft account. They're asking for your Purchase account. And then you select that, and then that takes you and your students to CTS's authentication page. So you don't have to create an account with new credentials at FlipGrid. FlipGrid will actually talk securely to the pages that Campus Tech Services has set up for authenticating. And then I just put in my Purchase College password, and the authentication server at Purchase would say, are you trying to sign into FlipGrid? And I would say, yes, I am. And now I am logged into FlipGrid. I could do the selfie. You can see I've only got 1 minute and 30 seconds set up here, so it's not a long thing. I could hit record, say, hi, I'm your instructor. I'm stuck in the basement for the last 6 months, but hoping to help you all think about search for life in the universe, yada, yada, yada. There are, you know, you can put emojis on the screen, you can put various filters on, you can use a pencil to draw on the screen. I'm not going to do any of those things because I'm an old codger. And then I'm going to hit the arrow button on the lower right hand side to hit record, say, hi, I'm your instructor. Yeah, okay. I'm stuck in the basement for the last, going to go to the next. You have to have some image that will show up on the grid. That's what they mean by selfie. It doesn't actually have to be a selfie. It could be, You know, it could be a picture of your cat if your cat is around. And then click post. My intro, you know, whatever you want to do, and then hit submit video. And then if I return to the grid, now I see on my iPhone app that there's a response posted. But I see there aren't any eager beavers in the workshop who have gone on and posted their own responses. Let me stop sharing my phone. And so that I think that really kind of shows the simplicity of doing this. Like, I mean, Wally, if your students would have to, I mean, if they were going to post, you could set up a grid, and on that grid you can set up a topic where you're requesting 2-minute and 30-second videos, and then they probably would need a partner, right? Someone to actually hold the phone and shoot the video while they're doing the combination. But that's the process that would take, and then that would be just published right up to your FlipGrid. And then at the end of the week, or when, you know, whenever you're ready to look at all of them, you just go there. And what it would look like, let me share my screen again, but now I'm going to go back to sharing my desktop. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Keith, this whole QR code thing, so I'm seeing it and I finally found it on the sandbox. Are we supposed to have our own? I'm not understanding.
I'll show you how to get that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Each of your grid topics that you set up, you can generate a QR code from the FlipGrid place. So here I am looking at this specific topic on the grid, and I see here's the thumbnail view. I can click on it and hit record. Say hi. Pop up. I'm here. So with a class of 60 students, or maybe I set up 6 of these topics, and each board essentially will have, you know, 10 little short videos from students. Then you know, I could just go through and play them one after the other to see the students' introductions. So what my account looks like, again, I'm going to have to log in. To see the grid that I've set up for my Search for Life in the Universe course. Actually, I didn't want to go into that. Oh, I guess I just have the...
Hi, Keith. Thanks for doing so much for us.
Yeah. Somebody's recording. Okay, why am I stuck in the topic? That's not what I want. Okay, so here is kind of my dashboard. I've got a grid here for Search for Life in the Universe, and I can kind of see my analytics. Why am I not seeing my...
Can people comment on the videos?
Yes. But you can tell I've just started using FlipGrid because I'm not easily navigating back to the page that I want to navigate to. Either that or they have overnight changed the layout for the setup.
Is the name FlipGrid a hangover from the flip phone or the flip video camera, or what's that about? I mean, I get the grid, I don't get the word flip.
That I'm not sure. There we go. I guess I just wasn't fully logging in. So this is what your MyGrids format looks like. I have added one grid so far for my Search for Life in the Universe course, and that grid has one topic and one video. Let me just edit the details on that grid. This is when you first sign up for an account and you create your first grid, they would show you, you'd have to give the grid a title. It would come up with some default grid code. So you could provide this link to your students and they would go to a place where all of the topics for that grid would be displayed. Elise asked about locking this down. So as I mentioned, I made it public to begin with, just to make it easy for all of you to get in and look at the grid. You can have it public, but apply a password, and so I could just put on a password like astrobio 2020, and then share out this link to the grid to my students, and they would actually have to enter this password to be able to access the grid. Okay.
Would that be enter that password without having to make an account or having already made an account?
This would be without having to have made an account.
Okay.
So, but no one can record videos to attach to a topic without logging in some way, either through their Microsoft account, which translates in our terms to their purchase account, or using their Google account. You could select school email as the access, and then put in at purchase.edu, and then that would restrict access to your class grids to people who had purchase.edu accounts. So it's still a larger universe than just your class. If you really want to make sure that only you and your students access the grid that you've set up on your FlipGrid account for your class, you could select this option here, where and some of you have already established student status by logging in to this grid, but you could ahead of time create unique identifiers for each of the students in your class, and distribute each student their identifier, and then upload those in here, and then only the people on your student list who could, provide that identifier would be able to get in and look at the grid. I'm going to leave it here as public, but I am going to put the password on, so when you go to access any of the topics in this grid for the rest of the workshop, you would need to give the password AstroBio 2020. You can determine how you get notified that there's activity. You can allow students to download the videos or not. You can personalize the grid. Let me just go ahead and pull up an astrobiology banner image that I'll have on the grid here, and click update the grid. And now this grid that I'm looking at has these details. Here's the code to the grid. Here is this initial topic. If I wanted to add another topic, just click on the add a new topic. And this topic could be how do you think you might, or here, for the title, I'll just say uses. And for the prompt, I'll say, how do you think you might use FlipGrid? I mean, I could ask this question in the session here and have you type something into the chat, but this sets it up as this FlipGrid comment. And again, here, you could, if you want just, a quick brainstorming kind of response, you could have flip video responses as short as 15 seconds or as long as 10 minutes. The default looks like to be 1 minute and 30 seconds, which is actually turns out to be a long time for recording. The one instructor talked about not allowing students to see the uploaded recordings until she released them. Here's where you would set that. This video moderation. And then if I create the topic is ready. Here is the link to the topic. So if I go over back into my course here, and I'm going to create a new page. Let me turn editing on, or it's already on. I'm going to create a Moodle page where how will you use FlipGrid? And I can, in the content of the page, I can go back to my FlipGrid.
You could just add a URL, right?
You could add a URL.
Okay.
But you can't do the QR code with the URL. So let me.
I see what you're saying.
Oh, come on. Get rid of some of these other. And then if I go back to my topic that I've just added, if I click on this share QR code, I will get this uniquely generated QR code for this particular address. Can download that. It'll just download to my downloads area, and I can go, you know, add a picture. And these tend to be kind of large, 660 pixels. I cut them down in half and insert and create the page. But, you know, as Lee said, you could just add a URL resource that provides the link to that topic. Students would actually have to pull up your course in the browser on their phone if they were going to use the phone to do that, and then they could click on that URL resource. But if you do embed those QR codes in pages or even in a label resource on the front page of your Moodle course, but then that starts taking up a lot of room. If you've got the QR code embedded there, they can just open up the app and be looking at your course on their, you know, desktop computer, and then use the QR code to go to the grid. So all set. Now I've got another
May I just interrupt with a quick techie question before you continue on?
Sure.
You had said that if they're signing in with the Microsoft option, that this will communicate with CTS's authenticator.
Yep.
Okay. Is that seamless, or do they have to know what they're doing to do that?
Well, let me go into a different browser, and where I'm not logged in, and let me get the let me go here to get the URL, and I'll just pretend I'm a student here on some other browser. I need to enter the password to get to the grid. And if I were going to, no account needed at this point, right? If I were going to add my response as a student through my laptop here, I click on this. At this point, I would need to log in. You just tell your students, select the Microsoft option and log in with your purchase email. So they would put in, really need a separate purchase account that I can actually use, but I just will use my account again. This is what they would do. You know, Susan Smith at purchase.edu, and they would hit next, and they would select their school account, and then they would be taken to the authentication service at purchase. So you can tell up here that you're not giving your password, you're not giving your purchase password to FlipGrid, you're talking to the server at purchase. And they would sign in. Don't save. And once they're logged in, they would get the camera for recording and so forth.
So Keith, in that case, you don't need access to the QR code. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So just to follow up on that, you could in fact film your video using your desktop computer.
Yeah.
And then you don't need the QR. It's the QR that allows the app to talk to the program.
Right.
Okay.
So if you've got students who are, working on their laptop or, working on a desktop where they've got camera and microphone and so forth, they could use a web browser and go to your grids that you're setting up and to the topics in your grid. I just think the way our students live, the more you're comfortable providing them access to your grid spaces through the apps on their phones, the more responsive they're going to be.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I see the recordings are captioned too, right?
What?
The recordings are captioned, right?
Yeah, I need to look into that, Leandro, actually.
Maria just posted and she was captioned.
Okay, excellent.
What was it? What happened? What did I do?
In your video, you have your captions.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. I mean, I just tried to talk.
In yesterday's workshop, I showed off the live captioning when using Google Slides presentations, and it's pretty good. It's automated. It's artificial intelligence, machine learning kind of stuff. I would not be surprised that FlipGrid has that automatically built in, because video is their thing, and K through 12 applications are a big part of their universe, and so I would expect them to be ahead of the curve in making sure that they're dealing with accessibility issues like that. So it's good to know that we can take a look here.
So you're saying it automatically added my name. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think he's saying if we look at your video here.
Thanks, Keith. I hope this works. Thank you for showing us this tool.
Grid has one topic. Let me try it again with captioning turned on.
Thanks, Keith. I hope this works. Thank you for showing us this tool.
Grid has one topic. Yeah, so students who need the closed captions can turn closed captioning on when they're viewing the videos, or if you find it useful as well. These will, of course, be automatically generated captions, so they may not be perfect. It's not like you've got a person actually live typing the captions, but that's good to hear.
Who wrote "Leave a Vibe" and then someone's supposed to click fire because she's like on fire, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, who wrote "Leave a Vibe" at the top?
Thanks, Keith. I hope this works.
Right, and you're supposed to click.
Thank you for showing us this tool.
Grid has one topic. Yeah, these are interaction tools that I haven't actually taken much look at yet, but clearly
she didn't write leave a vibe.
No, I certainly didn't. I would never leave a vibe.
I'm just saying, like, how do we control that?
A good question. I'm not sure.
But maybe I needed to be more vigilant while I was recording. Maybe that was behind me and I had no idea. I don't know. I just did
It's just very high schooly in my mind. So,
yeah.
I mean, clearly, not only high schooly but grade schooly, and so
exactly.
You have to figure out if there's no way to turn off these bells and whistles.
Yeah.
Is that going to turn your students off or not?
Right.
Maybe not.
I have a side question.
Yeah.
Is it possible to have students record a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes of video on VoiceThread?
Yes. So actually,
yeah,
we're running low on time. So let me just go back to my notes. And we want. It's fairly straightforward to set up an account if you're interested. I've kind of gone through the issues that you would be thinking of if you're going to create a grid. You can create as many grids as you want, it looks like, with your free account. And we've gone through adding topics. Clearly, there are pros and cons for using FlipGrid. One of the big cons, I think, or a couple of the big cons are that you're sending students outside of Moodle. There's not, unless I get the embed issues figured out, it's not like you're going to be able to bring FlipGrid inside your Moodle class. It makes it easy. I mean, there are pretty easy ways for you to direct students to the FlipGrid activity from your Moodle class. So it's not like you're sending them completely cold to some third-party application, but it is outside of Moodle. It may not have the tone that you want, and we'll have to see about whether there are grid settings that would turn off some of those engagement features. I mean, those are obvious, or those are all ways that the company has, in their experience, figured out to make the platform engaging to students. The fact that you can put emojis on your video and that you can draw on your video, and there's probably filters you can play with. If you are thinking of this as high-level academic video, this is probably not the right tool. Some of the pros, though, are it is very easy to use. It's very easy for your students to share these videos. The fact that it is so mobile friendly contributes to that. But there are different ways of doing this. Rachel, that was you who mentioned VoiceThread, right? Or was it someone else?
It was me.
Yeah. So you could set up a single slide VoiceThread activity. And on that slide, you could put the text of the prompt that you want the students to respond to. And you could even, in the settings on that VoiceThread, limit student commenting to using their webcam, or the camera on their phone. Or you could have it as either record a comment or use the webcam in order to really force students into the recorded comment kind of response. Then there would be a VoiceThread that has just the one slide, and all of the responses to it would show up as comments around that slide. You could even make it a required comment activity and require the students to leave one comment. Well, there's only one place to comment, and that's on that one slide. So you could sort of set up your own FlipGrid environment by using kind of fairly customized VoiceThread activities in Moodle.
Would that work for like 30, 35 students on one slide?
Yeah, the thumbnails for the comments will shrink as more need to be fit in, but you would be able to see them all around the periphery of the slide. If you've got 35 students recording, little video comments, clearly you're going to have much easier layout and access of those in the FlipGrid environment, which is meant to be a kind of gridded presentation of these videos. But it would work in VoiceThread. The other thing I just want to mention is that Marie and I, maybe it's more me, have been looking at this additional plugin for Moodle, which allows for video and audio recording activities in various places around Moodle. So that anywhere you're typing Moodle text, you can click turn on the camera and record a comment. So you could theoretically, even without that, you could set up a discussion forum, but rather than having students type their introductions or type their responses, you could ask them to put a little recording up on their YouTube channel and embed that recording in the reply that they're posting to the forum. So there are, between voice threads and discussion forums and maybe this Poodle plugin, there are ways of doing this within Moodle, but FlipGrid, it's a fairly simple way for your students to contribute video to specific topics that you're setting up in an environment where you can collect all of these topics. So with that, I'll stop sharing. Let me see if there are any other questions.
Just the dumbest one, which is, again, to get started, you create a FlipGrid account on your computer, then you download the app, right? On your phone, and then they'll start to talk to each other. Okay.
Now,
that's the part I always have trouble.
You could set up your account. Just go to FlipGrid. You just do a search for FlipGrid, pull it up in your browser, click on the
on my computer. We're talking about on my computer.
On your computer, yep. And then actually, does someone want to set up a FlipGrid account right now?
Someone please do it. I will screw it up, so I don't want to do it, but I want to watch.
I think I did it.
Okay, but I was going to say, I was going to let someone share their screen and actually step through the process.
So I don't know if I know how to share my screen.
Yeah,
so
but
I'm not a good example.
But Cassie, if you've already set up your account, then
you're not talking to me, are you?
I can do it.
Good try.
Okay, so I gave participants the ability to share screens. So Wally, you should see a share screen option at the bottom.
You want me to try?
Yeah, whoever wants to jump in.
Sorry, I have to open.
Okay, so Leandro is there already, Wally. So we'll let him step through.
Is that okay?
Yeah. So just go back to.
Let me go back.
Go back to
FlipGrid.com.
Yeah, FlipGrid.com. Thank you.
All right. Educator sign up.
Educator sign up. And then you could, if you click on sign up, you've got actually three options. If you click sign up with Microsoft, you can use the Purchase College authentication. If you want, you can actually set up a different account with your Google account, and you would just click sign up with Google, or you could use a kind of a more involved sign-up process where you give your username, your email address as your username and so forth. But go ahead, Leandro, click on sign up with Microsoft.
So I just did this window. No?
Oh, okay, so we're not seeing the window, but you're seeing the window where it says.
You cannot see the window?
No, I guess you must. You're not sharing your whole.
I'm going to share the whole screen. Wait. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Okay, what about now?
Yep.
Right.
So you've already gone through and you've typed in your address and when
I was teaching last spring, I could only share one screen at a time. How do you share all screens?
Select desktop when you go to sharing, rather than sharing an individual application window.
Right.
Do desktop, and then whatever window you're looking at is shared.
It's so annoying that I didn't figure that out. Sorry.
Which should be the one on the top.
Top left. Yep. I some people don't click share desktop because they think that means their actual desktop, and my desktop's pretty messy. And so, but it doesn't actually mean sharing your desktop. It just means whatever you're looking at on the computer screen is what your students see. So yeah, Leandro created an account by clicking on Microsoft, and then it's going to ask you, some basic information there.
Should I do this?
Sure.
Okay, this is secret information.
Yeah, actually, don't do that, Leon. Well, okay. I'll blank this part out.
Secret. Oh, I have to. It's okay, I'm still 21.
I would do anything to be that young.
And then it will automatically create a first grid for you. And it will that grid, here's where you would say, do I want my students to use their school email? Do I want to take the effort to actually give a unique identifier to each student? That would be the student ID part. Or do I want to just make it public but put a password on it? And those are your options. And it creates automatically that URL for your grid. So you have to think of, you've got your account, and in your account you can have one or more grids, and each grid can have one or more topics. And so this flip code, the Benmergui 7832, is the URL for the grid that Leandro is setting up. And go ahead and click next.
And I created this grid for one of my classes.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure. And then go to your grid. You'll see that it by default has this say hi on FlipGrid topic. So yeah, so go ahead and click go to your grid, and you've got the one topic. If you scroll down a little bit, everyone will see the one topic, say hello on FlipGrid. It's kind of a generic say hello, so if you actually wanted to customize this to be your icebreaker, you could click on the pencil over there on the right. And rather than this kind of generic prompt, you could put in whatever prompt you want. And, Leandro could come up with some prompt that has the students talk about their background in relationship to, and I didn't catch which course this is for, Leandro, but, yeah, modern Latin American.
So Leandro, did you make this public, and did you do so by clicking on that third option, education learning community?
No, I clicked on the first one. Students have to log in using their Microsoft.
Okay, their purchase accounts.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, because he selected that first one, that's why there was that intermediate step where he was asked, what school domain did you want
right,
to
okay, include? Okay. But had he clicked on that last one, it would have been public, so anyone could come in, they could use their private Gmail if they wanted to.
Yep.
Then I have one more question. Then you said this before, but I lost it. So then he can take a URL and he can post it into Moodle? Or
yes.
Not? Okay.
So what would be better, to use the purchase credentials, or I didn't want to make it public. That's why I.
Right. The way you've got it set up now, if I came across the URL for your grid, I could click on that URL and I could log in with my purchase credentials and I could see it. Now, is that going to happen? Likely not. But if you really did want to strictly limit this to just you and your students, your most secure option is to do that second option, where you would create a unique identifier for each of your students, and it could be anything, but something more complicated than 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you would give Susan her identifier, you would give Frank his identifier, and you'd give Charlie their identifier, and so forth. And then you could actually upload all of those accounts as a CSV file, or you could manually create them one at a time in your FlipGrid settings. And then to access your modern Latin American history grid, the student would have to give the specific code that you had given them.
Okay.
That doesn't actually, well, that actually would register them at FlipGrid. They would still probably need to, well, I don't know. If they're in with the code that you've given, then they probably wouldn't need to go through the purchase login or the Gmail login to actually do the recordings.
They should be fine doing that, right?
Yep. So, like I say, it could be a fun tool. It can be useful. I think the things some things we don't need to check on is that we know that it does automatic captioning, so that we don't have to worry about accessibility issues. One thing I will try to look at or see if we can do some research on is if there's a way to turn off the fun features and make it more academic. That might just be baked into the case, because the focus really is on making this, a fun, engaging video sharing app. So once again, we're over time. That's kind of standard procedure for my workshops, but thanks for hanging around.
Thank you, Keith.
Yep.
Thank you, Keith.
I will go ahead and stop the recording.